Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Spinner Rack. I'm here with my boy, Petey. Say what's up, Petey.
What up?
Hey, today we're going to be talking about House of M. We're going to get a general review of it and our thoughts on the particular series that was written by Michael Bendis and illustrated by Oliver Coipel. And we got stuff to say, people. We got stuff to say. You know, if you're a Wandavision viewer, I would say, or you want to watch Wandavision, I'd say, do you need to read House of M? What do you think, Petey? Do you need to read House of M if you're a WandaVision viewer, or, you know?
Well, in this one, I mean, I guess it doesn't, it has Wanda in it. It's mainly about her. But I mean, I guess it's sort of the same thing, you know? I guess it's sort of the same thing. So,
Well,
I think now that you, I mean, no, and not the same way it's done. It's not done the same way, but it's definitely the, it's a viewer asks, "Where's Cal?" Let's see if we can. I don't know if we can get Cal in here, but
if we can bring Cal in, bring Cal in.
You know, we first say please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet.
Yeah.
But we will try to invite Cal into this. Let's get this thing going. But we had 2 seconds on our hands, so we decided to do a thing. Let's see if we can get him to muster out of his cave and do a show. But anyway, yeah, I think what was it? Because if you have seen it or you haven't seen it, I think it'll be different enough that you can watch it without being bothered. Hey, look,
he's rocking, bro.
Look who's here.
He's coming on.
Well, you can't see it on screen, but we see him here. You can't see him on the live thing, but he's definitely here.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing just fine. Whose idea was this? It was yours, wasn't it? Right, Mars? Right?
Hey, last minute, baby.
Right. Didn't think I'd catch up, right? Think I don't pay attention, right? Didn't think I'd see the live stream, right?
I actually didn't say that.
We can't right? Bicker. We gotta do about we're doing the show on House of M. So
I can bicker all right.
But you know what? So the question is here is, do you need to read House of M before you see WandaVision?
No, you do not.
Hey, there we go. He answered that. Exactly. You guys don't see him, but
is it even worth reading at all?
Those are 2 different questions. You don't need. Do you need to read House of M before you see WandaVision? No, you do not, because it has absolutely nothing to do with the show. Do you need to read the Scarlet Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries before? And this is be the first one and the second one before you see the show. That could be helpful if you want a little insight. But to be quite honest, because of the way that show unrolled, with the first 6, maybe 7 episodes really not being consequential of anything, you don't really need to read these comics to go into it. This was effectively the origin of the Scarlet Witch, you know, her actually becoming a superhero with a name like everybody else, improving her costume instead of her looking like she's going out to go, you know, get nonplussed with her girlfriends. And, you know, that's it. You know, that's where we're at. Now, in other news, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is awesome.
Let's go back to the House of M. Let's get back to House of M. So we're doing
House of M. Can you we're just talking about a review of House of M and in relations to WandaVision. So, you know, this story basically is, like I said before, this is a Wanda Maximoff basically goes mad because of her kids and suffers a serious mental breakdown, and she changes the whole reality of the world to hide to what is it, for her kids, because to help have her kids brought back basically after, to bring it back together. And so, you know, she changes everything. So now in this world, in House of M, mutants are on top. The king of all mutants basically is Magneto, and of course that's where you get the House of Magnus or the House of Magneto that you have the House of M from. And so you basically have the heroes or non-mutants trying to stop this, overturn this, once they find out that this is not how things really work. So I mean, after reading this particular issue, we read it before in the past, and now we're reading it again. You know, what are your thoughts on this particular series? There were what, 8 comics, but I think like over 30 tie-in books, which had, some of them looked as though they had absolutely nothing to do with some of this stuff here, or just basically trying to sell comics. What are your thoughts on this?
Before you pass it off, since you read it most recent, can you start it off and your feelings about it?
Okay,
I'll tell you. Yeah, let's hear this.
I'll tell you my feelings, which is, you know, I do remember reading it years ago, and you know, with this whole thing, I thought it was great. But then after rereading it and reading some of the supplemental comics that were there too, I've come to the conclusion it's not necessary to read again. You know, this, you know, I like stories that have
like it, not necessary. Did you like it? And what was it? Was it good or bad?
The world, the possibility of the world and how it was going to go. But I did not like the way it ended because there was no ending. There was no conclusion. You had to go to another series of comic books to read that. And that to me pissed me the heck off. Okay. I mean, I was so PO'd. If I had to come, I would have ripped it in half because of what it did. The story was not, to me, it was like, it didn't have an ending. It didn't end. You know? And so I was very disappointed. I thought there was, it ended, this is no spoiler, it ended with her basically saying no more mutants, right? And the mutants disappear, but they don't go into the consequences there. It's just done, you know, and then you move on to the next step. So, and one of the things they painted Magneto as a villain throughout the series until the very end when you found out it was actually Quicksilver who made her sister do what had to be done. But Petey, I mean, Cal, Petey, whoever wants to start with this, who wants to answer? What is your take on the House of M?
Well, I'm going to give a quick one. I know Cal knows maybe a little more than me because I've only overviewed it. The hard part is that it's a continuing a story that another writer had started, and it was kind of taking that idea and almost doing the same thing, but differently, you know? It's kind of having the start with this new reality with Scarlet Witch, where you start with her thinking she's having these kids, and then next thing you know, Professor X is saying, no, you know, you didn't have kids, and Magneto, them talking is over. And then the heroes kind of say, you know what, we got to take her out. And then next thing you know, it becomes Wolverine's story for the next 3 or 4 issues, where he just kind of gallivants through and gathers the hero. And this is the same plot that is in one of the interviews that John Byrne said that one character who wasn't going to be the most popular character on the planet, but one person that was out at the time who was in limbo, who was the Black Knight. He was in limbo, so he would be the one in this new reality that would pop back in and start bringing the heroes together. But doing Wolverine on a cool bike and all this other stuff to sort of fix things is kind of where I kind of left the story. So, and then you get the big moment, which I guess it works for the fans, which is the No More Mutants. But for me, it didn't really go. But I mean,
that was the best part of the whole series.
Oh my gosh. The decimation, huh?
No, because he doesn't like mutants either. So that's the other issue.
I'm not really big on mutants, and I agree that there was too many of them. So when they said no more mutants, I said, oh yeah, I'm with it. You know, cull this hers. There's too many of these suckers.
Oh, that's not what they did.
And that show proved that there were too many of them. I'm like, yeah, get rid of these guys. So I was like, okay, this is cool. But then they went too far, and cats who I actually liked, they started taking them out. Like I like Xavier. I love the original. I love the original 5. And they just like, oh no, he's not gonna have any powers, and he's not gonna do this. And they only did that because they were like, oh, this is great. We can finally get rid of Xavier, and we don't have to worry about him being so powerful. And he's totally written off stage, and it all works. I'm like, no, it doesn't work.
I mean,
well, okay, let's get back to House of M. Let's talk about House of M.
Wait a second. Did you read? Did either of you read Age of Apocalypse?
Oh God, you're not doing a comparison. I'm
just asking you. Did you read Age of Apocalypse?
Yes, I read it
years ago.
Yes.
Okay, so if you read Age of Apocalypse, you read House of M. You're good.
Oh, wow.
Same story. Okay, things are out of whack. One or two people realize, hey, things are out of whack, and we got to put the timeline back the way it's supposed to. This series is just longer, and it's a classic Brian Michael Bendis move. Hey, remember that story? I want to do that story, but I'm going to do it better and longer. It's like the Snyder Cut.
Well, I mean, this comic sold was like one of the top sellers of the year. And
oh God, don't please! I hate when you do this. The money doesn't keep it from sucking.
For just a voice, you have a lot of energy, sir.
I don't get the hate, but House of M was one of the top selling comics of the year. And it was one of the big comics that made Michael series that made Michael Brian Michael Bendis. I mean, it made him the legend that he is.
Oh, he was a legend before that, but regretfully he got bigger.
Oh, he got huge. And after that,
Disassembled. I mean, he was already planned. He had the Ultimate Spider-Man.
That was him.
Ultimate Spider-Man was big. Disassembled was big, and then this was his big crossover. And it's like, it's something that people still remember. So they'll still think movie-wise, maybe we'll get this because we've already seen Wanda rewrite the word thing, and they haven't called her on it so she could create a House of M where we get the X-Men back. Oh, I said it out loud. That sounds terrible. Oh my gosh.
Well, they're coming back. So Cal, what was your take on the whole House of M? Would you recommend it? Would you read it again?
Would I read it again? No. Would I recommend it? Absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, look,
some of the offshoots, they had a lot of tie-in stories. And some of the tie-in stories were actually a lot of fun at the end of the day. But it's like what Petey said, if this had been the Black Knight, and the Black Knight was the center of the whole thing because, he had been out of the whole time loop. So when he comes back, he's like, what the hell is going on? Okay. But when it becomes another Wolverine to the rescue story and an X-Men story too, that becomes, for me, it's like, okay, you didn't write this for me. You wrote this for guys who want to see more Wolverine. I'm out. But even then, I still read enough of the story because I wanted to stay in the loop of what was going on. And then but again, that last issue, I loved it. All she had to say was no more mutants. So I was like, yeah, that was a great payoff for me.
Oh my gosh. I would only say that doesn't work more on what you're saying, because it basically was like, hey, we're not going to have the X-Men for a while. We got Wolverine. Let's get rid of the X-Men for a while. We'll just have a couple of titles, but we're not going to promote them like we did before. And regretfully, Jason Aaron made a name for himself on the X-Men while they were in their almost their sideline period. And then of course Bendis knocked them over doing his all new X-Men with the original one. So that was all a plan to say, hey, we want to knock these guys down, push them aside. So it wasn't actually fixing it. And then what do we have now? It's even worse. It's been worse since the House of M. It's gotten way worse.
I mean, I gotta agree with both of you guys. It became a.
How can you agree with both of us?
So listen, I agree with the whole Wolverine being the focal point of the book. I mean, one of the focal points of the book. But what about the whole thing that the turn that it became? Everybody thought it was Magneto at the very end, because the whole premise is that they were thinking about killing her, right? Avengers and X-Men got together because they're like, she's too dangerous. They already killed a couple of the Avengers. We got to do something about it. And then Quicksilver goes to his father and says, we got to do something. Magneto, imperious. I'm not going to say anything. I can't stop this. And Quicksilver basically goes back to his sister and gets her to basically just change the whole reality. What was your take on that? I mean, did you think she was that powerful at that time? I can't remember her being that powerful prior to that.
Because she never was that powerful.
She wasn't supposed to be that powerful. When she was gaining power, it was supposed to be through another character, which would be Immortus, who was going to reveal himself at a later date. He was hinted at. Since she could alter probabilities, he was expanding it to do other things. So when you see the Darker Than Scarlet storyline, Magneto says, I don't know what happened. I don't know how she got this powerful. And then they did have a thing where they said she's able to, retroactively do something to altering probabilities. It worked at a retroactive level. That didn't mean that she could do anything. So they were kind of puzzled. And that's where we didn't get to see, we got to see Roy Thomas do the story where Immortus comes. It's not this big thing. The original plan was that Kang would win, like Immortus would change probability, so Kang would win, the Avengers would be gone, the whole Earth would be that, and Immortus would be closing off all these timelines. But it was basically, we didn't have Immortus in there. He was just like saying, hey, this grief from the loss of her kids would come back, and then that would make her this infinitely powerful person because she had the chaos magic and she's insane, so she then becomes, absolute power. I guess through that grief somehow she became powerful, but it wasn't set up the way he did it. He just said, hey, I'm not dealing with all that. I need to do these human moments, and Wolverine's on the motorcycle, going down the highway.
I mean, so what about the possibility? I mean, were you guys all intrigued in the world with
mutants must die?
What about you, Cal?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Yo, you gotta change your name. I said
It's live.
No, it's okay. He's not on. He's not on screen.
okay, good. But I'm saying, how do you feel about the fact that this whole mutant world? What do you take about that? Was any of that intriguing to you? You know, the different connections. You know, how it is with the House of M. I mean, is this something that
No,
you want to explore?
I was so faded with that idea when I was reading Alex Ross's Earth X, where pretty much everybody on the planet became a mutant. It was the extent, to me, it was very similar to that at the end of the day. It was the X-Men, unfortunately, one of their best storylines is Days of Future Past. Okay. And unfortunately, you know, we all know what happens. These classic storylines can be revisited. It was revisited in Age of Apocalypse, which was actually entertaining at the end of the day. That was actually more entertaining, at least for me. So then we get the whole thing with House of M. And the big thing that, even though I liked it, the big thing was this was like, hey, this was a culling story. Almost like when they had Scourge and he was killing all the villains. I forget what the name of the storyline was. But, you know, they had this character and he was just going around. He was killing all these villains. And pretty much this was like, okay, he's killing off these villains. And this way we can kind of like thin the herd a bit, you know, because there's just too many of them. And this storyline came along the same lines. We'll do all the, you know, we'll hit all the same notes. We're going to have, you know, it'll be an alternate timeline. You know, we'll see what these people look like in terms of being different. It'll be fun. We'll revert back to the timeline. And we can also get rid of some of these. We can also get rid of some of these cats because they're just hanging around. We don't necessarily need them anymore. And with of course, you know, what Petey said, yeah, you know, we're going to get rid of them now, but then we're going to blow the whole thing up. You know, there'll be 3 times as many when you look back on the whole thing. So it didn't really necessarily serve that. It didn't really necessarily serve that purpose. Again, some of the tie-in, like the tie-in stories, like the Hulk was one, were really fun reads in terms of tying in. But the tie-in was so thin, it didn't necessarily have anything to do with the overall story. It was I almost want to call it a period piece. But it was something I thought worked really well at the time for Marvel for what it was at that time. We'll probably see it, unfortunately, in conjunction with Scarlet Witch going forward, because again, it's a very simple. Since they've already amalgamated her power to a place where it really doesn't need to be, you know, we could definitely see her speak those words, and next thing you know, we got a whole bunch of mutants on our hands. They got to get them in there somehow.
It's kind of funny that they actually put a number on the mutants. I think like 1 million in the book, and I was like, wow, I thought it was going to be a lot more than that. A lot more mutants.
That's a lot for them. Before that, Petey can speak to this better than I can. But I think like around Bronze Age, not quite Copper Age, the mutant race was like very, very small in comparison to human beings. Okay, correct?
Well, yeah, it's if you more so when Roy Thomas or Stan Lee was doing them, it was definitely connected to the atomic age. So it wasn't the way Chris Claremont said. You know, you can when you got the Morlocks, that's when it kind of went out of whack at first. And I think Morrison went even beyond that with the having the whole Genosha having mutants and then X-Men having all these people. But yeah, originally it was a small number. You had to be, everyone had to work in the atom age, like on an atomic bomb or something like that. And then that would connect you to have your offspring having kids. So it wasn't that many people in that sense, but then yeah, they kind of went out the way. Went beyond that way when Chris Claremont got there to the Morlocks and whatnot.
I mean, what about some of the characters who were there? I mean, like in the House of M, we have Magneto, of course, is the king. We have Quicksilver, the Crown Prince. We have Scarlet Witch, and then we also have Polaris as their daughter.
Oh, why would you go to that? Why? I've tried to say that to you 3 million times. You have to go to that.
It's the low-hanging fruit.
You know, I mean,
I do not like them reversing her to be his daughter again. I like that Magneto is a nasty, bloody-minded guy that sees someone else with magnetic power and says, "Hey, let me sweep you over and make you and it's the greatest title when you see the issue. It's done by Steranko, and the devil had a daughter, right? So it's all this fun stuff. But then at the same time, he just decided to sort of play off of that. He finds out she's a mutant, and he coaxed her into saying that was his daughter, which she was not. She was not.
Well, what can I tell you? If you got green hair, you must be the son or daughter of Magneto. If you got blue skin, you definitely have to be the son or daughter of Mystique. That's just it. That's how it rocks in the mutant world. You got claws? Wolverine's your daddy.
Oh my gosh. This is the crazy thing. Well, what's the name? Mystique comes and says Nightcrawler's mother's name. So your mother was a Margot Sawdust. It's a weird sort of name, but it's a circus person. So it's like she's saying the mother's name. Said your mother, like, because they were so similar. She said, Mystique says her mother's name, and everyone just made it a one-to-one thing that she was talking about herself. And it's just like, read the panel. But then, of course, Chris Clemmer had a different idea, and of course,
yeah, he said, "Oh, the fans love it. That's his mother now."
Yeah, there you go.
Now I see it. It all makes sense. It makes dollars and cents.
So overall, in going through the story, how did you like the fact that the heroes started to awaken, that this wasn't their place? You know, they had a character, I think her name was Lala, I forgot her name, and she was a young girl who was able to awaken those around her.
That was her mutant power. That's how they were being awoken?
Yeah.
A mutant power was what, to awake people?
It wasn't the world that they were in. You know, that they were in another world, basically.
That's a little convenient.
Yes. Very convenient.
Yeah, very convenient. So, and what about Kate, Cage, Luke Cage, and some of the characters in the story?
Well, you liked that, didn't you? You liked his new look in this story. That he's a little more thuggish in this one than he is.
Who, me or Mars?
No, Luke Cage.
No. Who liked it? Me or Mars? I think Mars would like that.
Mars is the one who liked it. He liked it.
I thought you would like that thug stuff. That's not me.
Yo, a thug, yo, bro.
He already looks like a thug. You know, he looks like a construction worker. I stand corrected.
They were drawing him. He looked like an ape in some of those things. I'm sorry, not in House of M. Let me not say that it was House of M.
Yeah,
but they did this quick series where they decided they were going to redesign him, and they made him more. We're going to make him more street. So they put him in his outfit with the braids slicked back and everything. He looked like an ape. Okay, sit dead up. I was like, who the hell thought this was a good idea? He was a little bit more scaled down there. At least he looked more street, not so ghetto at the end of the day. When they did that one, it was just wild. I was like, man, this is what he's got to look like in order for him to be street at the end of the day. I was like, wow, you know, the concept that some people have. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But you like that. But you like that, huh, Maz? You like that that thugged out look, huh?
I like the thugged out look. I thought it was cool. You know.
Yeah, all right, cool.
But you know, I gotta say, I love some of the splash pages in this particular comic. You know, like I love the royal family when they're all sitting together with the Magneto and his two grandsons. And everybody's around him. I like the fact that the battle scenes. I mean, they had some great coloring, great a little bit too much red, but a lot of some really good art. You know, and I had to give them credits for that. Yeah, I don't know how the Black Knight would have worked out in this, because I mean, back then Wolverine still is one of the most popular characters around. So, you know, I don't know how you could put him in a story. It was an adventure story, huh?
It works because the story is not about Wolverine. That's what it is. It's the same thing when the movie, and all of a sudden Wolverine had to become the focal point of Days of Future. But no, you know, you can do here's how you do it. You don't do the story with Wolverine. And you show that you can actually do a story without Wolverine being the focal point. But if you keep doing it, then after a while, it'll be like, oh, Wolverine's got to be here. Why? Well, look at the history. Because nobody wants to tell the story. You could have done the story with the Black Knight. Okay? It would have worked. There's no reason for it not to.
I think the tie-in with the X-Men was just too tight. I don't think they would have done that way. You know? But hey, you know what?
That was corporate. It sounded like a corporate decision.
It probably was. But
I was talking about you.
The ending for me was just got me so upset. But there's so many comics. I was really into the whole Mystique Wolverine relationship at one point. So
Why?
You know, I thought those comics wasn't bad. The way they were going back with Sebastian Shaw, you know. But I thought that was pretty good. Some of the others, I think, I wasn't too crazy about. I wasn't too crazy about those. But overall, I mean, like I said, I was very disappointed. If you do not need to read House of M for WandaVision. All you need to know is that she can change the world. You know what I'm trying to say? She has the power. Here, she changed the world. In WandaVision, she's only changing a town, you know, and the environs around it. That's basically it, nothing else. So this is not the story. WandaVision and Scarlet Witch, the limited series, probably will give you a little bit more insight into themselves, but other than that, I don't necessarily think so. So, I mean, do we all agree on that, gents?
Yeah, I think we agreed on that initially.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, bro. Spin a rock.
Out.
Out.